Welcome back, everybody, to the CD Financial Podcast. CD Financial, where health meets wealth. I'm Marcus C., your host. That man across from me, as always, is Chuck D. Chuck, my man, how you doing?
Killing it, Marcus. Killing it.
I love it. You're,
Every day's a blessing, baby. Every day's a blessing.
yeah, you're looking a little extra spry today. I don't know. You seem to have a little more spring. I was gonna say spring in your step, but you're sitting down, so spring in your seat, man. What's going on?
Juice in the presence here. I'm just happy.
Giddy
Happy
up.
to be alive. Hey, maybe you can ask me about it later. What happened to me in Mexico? And I'll tell you why.
Okay,
How's that sound?
that sounds
Yeah.
great, man.
Oh man, that's like baiting everybody there and you too, right?
Yeah.
Folks, he doesn't know. He doesn't know.
Mm-mm.
He doesn't know what went down.
I
That's
have
how
no
long.
clue. That's a
Yes,
teaser.
sir.
That's a teaser to get
Yes,
you
sir.
to stay tuned later. Big stuff happening. I'm
Yeah.
hoping it means that you found some Spanish gold or something and you're gonna hook me up with a little bit.
I think about how much, one of those little boxes, treasure chest
Yeah.
boxes would have been with a gold brick and how many ounces a gold brick would be in. I think it's like, I don't know, 2 to 3 million for one little chest, maybe more than that. I don't know.
Please tell me you found
It's
some. I could use a few
that'd be
bricks.
fun. Be fun. I sometimes think, what if you knew exactly where the treasure was buried, right? Or
Yeah.
what if you knew, where to look just off the coast in the Caribbean,
Yeah.
right? And where to go, and you just, took one of those vacuums that they use underneath, right, and just start vacuuming up, and then you can't tell anybody because then
Then everybody
the I
goes.
don't know, whoever the Bahamian government would say that's ours, or the
I-
Turks Caicos, hey, that belongs to us, or Jamaica, right? So they all claim it for
I've
themselves.
always wondered about that because okay, so a few years back we had the chance to be in Turks Caicos, right? And you remember
Yeah,
in the
man.
Turks Caicos they had those treasure maps that are actually
Just
engraved
to
into
be close,
rock.
just to be clear here,
Yeah.
Marcus, that was about 18, 17 years ago.
Shh. It was a few years ago, as far as I remember.
It's prior to us relocating to the West Coast. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that's how long ago it was because this is my 17th year. 17 years ago.
yeah, it was
Okay,
about
there you
17
go.
years ago. But
17 years ago. Yeah.
we
Go ahead.
we we saw those treasure maps, right, engraved in the
It was
rock,
cool,
which
right?
was really cool. But I always wonder, like people who find treasure now, because in my mind, I always imagine the guy with like, gold crosses shoved in his pockets, trying to walk through security, right? Trying to get on the flight. How do you get that stuff out of there? I mean, if you find some,
How do you? That's a really good question. Like, right? You hope you're in the Caribbean Ocean. You just start putzing along, and then you go into harbor and somewhere in Miami or wherever you are,
yeah,
right? Yeah. How do you? I don't know. I don't know about that, but you know what? I think the segue is perfect for the topic today, though, don't
I
you?
do, I do, because since I'm not going to be investing my gold anytime soon, we're going to talk about the stock market where my investments are. Now, for a lot of people, whenever the stock market starts to go a little wonky, right? It's freak out time.
Wonky,
Yeah, we get a little.
wonky. That's interesting. What do you mean by wonky, Marcus?
Okay, so all of a sudden, all the money that I have in there seems to be disappearing because everything's starting to drop. And this is
That
where,
is wonky.
for a lot of us, right, panic mode sets in. If not panic, at least nervous mode sets in, right? So
Yes.
when the market's losing money, what I want to talk about today is what should my strategy be? And let's go into this
What?
as you're helping me out here because I want to know what to do when it's wonky. I like the word wonky. Okay, so when things start to go south, what should you do?
Okay. Are we talking about you
Yeah,
in your circumstances?
yeah, yeah. We'll just
Well,
use me as an example.
great. Let's do that because that'll help.
Okay,
Uh, you're going to work for at least another 10 to 15
at
years.
least, yeah, yeah,
Then why are you? I mean, I'm almost like one of those. Why are you even asking the question? I'm serious
yeah,
because you have such a long timeline, right?
yeah.
Let me say, we have such a long timeline before retirement. We shouldn't be worried about the market losing.
Okay,
What we should be doing is simply continuing with our plan, marching forward day after day, week after week, right?
yeah,
Month after month,
yeah,
ignoring all the buzz because people who try to time the stock market, getting in, getting back, getting in, getting back,
hmm,
they make a horrible mess of it. But those who just stay the course will do much, much better.
all right,
I've seen many federal employees move everything over to the G fund and think, oh, I'm doing good now. And then when the stock market goes back up again, they lose the uptick. And meanwhile, when they move to the G fund, they've already moved. They're moving it when the stock market's already lost the majority of what it's going to lose.
Okay.
And so it's really it's a rough scenario. Now we'll talk in a few minutes about what to do when your timeline's a little bit shorter than you and me,
Right.
Marcus. How's that sound?
Okay, so let's start. In my case, before we get into that, as we get closer to retirement, I still got a few years ahead of me. When you see these fluctuations, the first thing it makes you think about is stopping what you're doing. Right? If I've been investing steadily in the market, should I stop buying? That's my first question at this point. Should I stop buying?
Should you stop buying if the stock market's going down?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So let me illustrate.
Hmm.
California, the price of a gallon of gas is probably $5.
Okay.
How much is the price of gas in Austin, gallon of
Right
gas?
now it's 250.
Is
Yeah,
it?
it's somewhere between
Okay.
239 and 269, depending on if you get over to Costco or not.
Okay, great. So, and maybe our price is down to like 450 now because I don't buy gas.
Yeah.
I have a plug-in car, so it's an electric car. So, okay, good. So, yeah. Okay, so where do you think if I'm going to take a road trip and um and I'm going to take off and let's say I drove to my in-laws in Oklahoma
Hmm.
and I'm down at a quarter of a gallon, right?
Right.
Am I going to fill it up in Oklahoma or am I going to wait till I get into New Mexico or Arizona?
If you're coming
I
back, I would probably want to get it in Oklahoma. I would imagine it's cheaper.
It's even cheaper than
Yeah.
Texas, just by a smidge, like 10 to 15 cents maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's even cheaper than Texas. I'm going to buy it there. Okay, why am I mentioning this? Buy it in California, buy it in Oklahoma or Texas. Because when the stock market's losing,
Hmm.
that's when you want to continue, especially to buy. You want to buy when it's down. Now you say, oh, well, hold on a second, Charles. I thought you said not to try to get in and out of the market. You are correct. I did say that. And so if you're a federal employee or you're any employee for that matter, and you're buying, look, I have a 401k at CD Financial here. My wife and I we fully max fund our 401k.
Right.
Every 2 weeks we're buying the same thing. Now at the end of the year, if you're really close to retirement, then maybe you want to rebalance what you've been buying if you're buying all stock.
Okay.
That's different. Maybe even every 6 months to rebalance, right? Even quarterly if you want to. But don't you like buying gas in Oklahoma or Texas?
Mhm. Yeah, well, as a
I
Texan, I
do.
can't admit to being in Oklahoma, but I get your point. Yes, I want to buy it where it's cheaper. Exactly.
I want to buy gas where it's cheaper. So I want to buy my stocks when they're
They're
cheaper.
cheaper.
So if the stock market's getting pounded, that's when I'm really want to continue to buy every 2 weeks. Now, let's say I got $1 million TSP or $1 million 401k.
Hmm.
Well, I might be concerned about that all being like, let's say with the TSP, all in the C fund, right?
Right.
100%, or maybe just 5% in the G fund,
Mhm.
and then 85% in the C fund, and 10 in S fund, and 5 in international. Yeah, that might be if I'm close to retirement, like within 3 years. It's pretty racy.
Yeah.
But what if you had that same mix for, and that's just an illustration, right? I'm not
Right.
telling you what to do. But what if you had that same mix every 2 weeks? When the market's going down, you're using dollar cost averaging and you're buying on that. That's one of the ways my 401k in the last, well, we just started it 2 or 3 years ago in the company.
Hmm.
That's how it's been really blossoming because I'm just buying with dollar cost averaging. So in the end, it's going to average out to really help me out,
Excellent.
right? Using a broad index, not buying individual stocks, but with a broad index, you can really be helped out. You won't, when one stock may fall 30%, the broad index may only fall only 12 or 13%.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's one question, right? Oh, that's one thing we need to consider. So, in my case, the other thing that happens, and I know I'm not unique in this. Market starts to go down. We sense the ship is sinking, and now it's time to abandon ship, right? So, should I start selling stuff off before it gets worse?
I don't know. Again, we talked about you being able to time the market. How do you know when the bottom is?
True.
How do you know when it's going to turn and go up again? Right
Yeah.
now, that's that's different. I already talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
If you're close to retirement, I already said if you're within 3 years of retirement, in my professional opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
As the regional authority here at CD Financial, where health meets wealth and federal benefits simplified, where here, when I say within 3 years of retirement, you've got to lay down that foundation of your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, this office below the pseudo wood linoleum flooring, it looks just like wood, folks.
Yeah. Laminate.
What is it made of? What's it laid on top of,
Yeah, it
Marcus?
should be cement. I hope it's cement. If not,
Cement. I like the way you say that. Cement. That's right. It's concrete, man.
yeah.
Yeah. It's concrete. It can't move. So that's where if I'm going to need that money for income, TSP,
Mm-hmm.
then I better damn well make sure that that house is built on rock and not sand.
Right.
I think Jesus mentioned that, right? So if bad weather comes, my walls will start to shift
Yeah.
and that house can crumble down. And if you're not watching this, folks, I'm making some really cool gestures here. So, right,
Yeah.
I want to put it down on rock.
Right.
So then I can put the walls of my financial house up, maybe with index funds and maybe even the stock index funds, and maybe even the roof with individual stocks. But I can't do that until I make my financial house rock solid. So if you're going to need that money for income, the income goes into the foundation of your financial house.
Right. Okay.
And then you can pull off money without any risk of loss. And as I've said before, TSP or any 401k, it's intermingling the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you got half in the G fund, half in the C fund, so half is for safety in G, half is for growth in the S&P 500, and the C fund comes down 20%, your whole account comes down 10. And that's no good.
Yeah.
You can't say I just want to take from the G fund. They're going to say, no, you can't. It's all pro rata. When we sell off, we sell off.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's for any 401k. So that's why I say get a plan.
Yeah.
Separate that money that's there for income. And as I've already said, Mark, it's if you're getting close to retirement, maybe you want to be rebalancing your TSP, maybe quarterly or every 6 months, right? Or it's why the TSP in most sane 401ks allow at 59 and a half what's called an age-based in-service rollover or withdrawal. That means you're age base, you're old enough,
Mm-hmm.
59 and a half, and in service, you're still working. So you're still working, but they allow you to start laying that foundation down, doing the dirt work,
Yep.
laying the columns are 3 feet deep with concrete, right? Maybe pop, 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 drilling down into rock and setting that house up tight. And then you are prepared to create the income that you need in retirement, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. Solid foundation to stand on. So, okay. Now you've alluded to being a retired.
Hold on a second. I want to ask you something,
Yeah, go
Marcus,
ahead.
because before you go off into another area, I want to ask you something.
Sure.
Does your paycheck every 2 weeks fluctuate with the performance of your TSP or your 401k?
No.
No. So people get a job and they expect their paycheck to be there.
Yep.
So in retirement, should your paycheck fluctuate according to the performance of your 401k, your TSP, your IRA even?
But it should be hard to set a budget if it does. I mean, hopefully it's not.
Sure.
Hopefully it's
Sure would be hard to set a budget. Yeah. So yeah, it should not fluctuate
right.
like that. So if you're going to need that money for income, then you should set up an account. And you've heard maybe the mention of bucket strategies. A lot of people have heard that. You should set up that account or accounts that cannot lose, but will allow you liquidity to pull out money for monthly income. So you can maintain or even better that standard of living that you had while working. You can maintain it or even better it because you may want to travel, eat out more even than you did while working.
Yeah, hopefully you're bettering it. Okay. So
Yeah.
what I was going to get at, because you alluded to it, I mean, I asked if I should stop buying, should I start selling? You've alluded to being of retirement age. So let's fast forward so many years, and I am now 65, right? Or at least I'm right either in retirement or right close to it. Is there anything else I should be considering when the market does this?
Well, yeah, when the market does this, you should have already had a plan. And if you didn't have a plan, at that point, I would say, look, um, maybe you should take your wins now and and go away, but not lick your wounds or cry over spilled milk. Well, if you could watch me here, because you may just
Hmm.
be listening, but if you're watching this maybe on YouTube and you see it, look, let's say the last 5 years you've gone up. Now you don't go up like in a straight line.
Right.
You go up in a zigzag because that's how the market
Ups
does,
and downs.
right? It has, it has peaks and it has valleys. So let's say for the most part you've gone up, and now this little bitty knob here at the top is maybe the last 10% that you didn't catch, and it went up and now it's lost, and you're going, oh gee whiz, I want to hold on to get that back again. You might be holding on for a long time,
Yeah.
and you may not have the time to do that. And in the interim, maybe you lose your job, right? That's not good. So why not take the win, right?
I like
Oh,
it.
Marcus, we both love
Yeah.
football,
Yeah.
okay?
Absolutely.
All right. So let's say you're up by 10 points, okay? It's 2 minutes left in the game. The other team throws a deep ball. They score a touchdown. They kick the extra point, and you're now up by 3 points. It's a minute and a half left. Now, are you going to go for a deep ball downfield to score another touchdown and risk the other team intercepting and running it back
No,
and winning the game?
no, no, because my shoe will come off and I'll throw it at the TV and then I'll have to buy a new TV. No, don't do that.
So okay, so what's going to be the play call with a minute and a half left and you're up by 3 points
If
and you
you're
got the
not
ball?
taking a knee, you're just doing that little quick handoff up the middle, man. But please take the knee.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Now I can't remember with 3 downs how much time you can kill.
Yeah,
Do you remember?
about a minute and a half. You're getting about 30 seconds.
Okay, so let's say you got a minute 45.
Yeah,
You're gonna like you said up the middle. You're gonna give it to the guy with the best what?
hands. Yeah, don't lose the
Not
ball.
not necessarily the best running skills,
Yeah,
but the best hands, so he doesn't do what?
don't fumble that away. We've seen it.
Don't fumble that away. Because what you're doing is you're preserving
The win.
the
Mhm.
W. You're preserving your win. So this is what I'm trying to say here with your portfolio.
Yeah,
If you've gotten the win over all these years and the last, few weeks or few months has been nasty to you, you might want to reassess it and say, wait a minute. If I'm 100% in the stock market and I'm planning on retiring in 12 months, what am I doing here,
yeah.
right? I got to set up that foundation. Charles just told me I need foundational income
Mhm.
if you're going to need the money. Now, if you aren't going to need the money for 3 to 5 years, that's a different story and a different argument altogether.
Yep,
But if you're going to need the money for income, you need a plan. To get a plan, you might need help,
yep.
right? That's why we say, look, that you can text your name and your email to 949-359-5100.
Hmm.
949-359-5100, and you'll get a 15-minute phone call. It's complimentary, and we'll be able to help you down that road. And just listen to what I'll ask some questions to find out what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
We all will.
yeah,
And then you could go from there. I mean, that's really, really where you want to go here,
yeah.
is to start to figure out what your plan is, right? It's one thing to have investments. It's a whole nother thing to have a written, reliable retirement income plan.
Yeah. One thing I've learned, I'm glad you put it in those terms. You mentioned football. One thing I've learned about a lot of coaches nowadays, they have every situation written down and they've decided ahead of time what to do in each situation so that when it's down to a minute and a half, they're not trying to figure out what to do to conserve the win. They have a plan in place, right?
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool,
Yeah.
right?
So
Yeah.
when to go for two, when to just fall on the ball, that's all decided ahead of time. So, yeah, good
Uh,
stuff. Okay, so you set up with a teaser in our intro today
that's right.
about Mexico, and you said something that happened in Mexico might even relate to what we're talking about. My brother, what happened in Mexico? We know you didn't find gold, so what happened?
No, I didn't find gold. And if I did, I was going to tell everybody. I might just tell you, though. What happened in Mexico? So, I love to swim in the ocean.
Yes.
Yes. And I was in Punta Mita.
Hmm.
It's a beautiful place. And I was at the Four Seasons. It was really nice.
Nice.
Right? Like exceptional hotel.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went out into the ocean, and there was a strange break that the waves came in different. The north part of the beach came in one direction, and then the south part of the beach, the wave seemed like it was breaking another way, and then there's rocks in the middle that flowed through. Anyway, I created a riptide in the south part of the beach.
Oh,
And so as I was breaststroking out, because I bring my goggles everywhere there's going to be ocean, and as I was just breaststroking out, and by the way, I'm going to mention no swimmer fins, just me
yeah.
breaststroking out. I was really rocketing out. I mean, I was flying out, and I was like, oh, "That's weird. I'm going out so quick. This is cool."
I
Right?
am a swimmer, man.
Boy, I'm like Superman. And then when I turned around to come back in, I didn't even get halfway in. I got about 40% of the way
No.
in, and I was not progressing. But you've been swimming with me
Yep.
before, and you've gone in early, and you're like, I'll check you later,
Yeah.
right? And I really love it. I was not loving that feeling. I could not move, and so I got on my back for a little bit, and then I turned over off of my back, and I decided to do the free. What am I saying? There's a breaststroke, the free stroke.
Yeah, just
Is it called free
yeah,
stroke? Yeah, the backstroke, the free stroke.
back.
So I started doing the free stroke, and I always get winded when I do the free stroke. And when I came out of the free stroke, it appeared that I made very little to no progress still. So I said to myself, calm down, relax. The ocean's your friend. The water, you've been in it since you were a child.
Yeah.
So I noticed that I was trying to swim straight in, and the wave was going southerly. So I turned with the wave and started swimming with the wave, and I still wasn't making any progress. Yeah, and I started praying out loud,
Yeah.
and then I started praying silently, and I looked north just after I prayed, and I noticed that there was a big rock formation that was appearing, and then it was disappearing with the waves, and then appearing, and then when the waves would come, it would disappear, and I thought, I can make it to those rocks, because I was really spent now, Marcus.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can make it to those rocks. Now, there's a lot of, you could have done this, Charles, you could have done that. I get it.
Yeah.
Folks, I've been on my back for, I won't say hours, but for minutes, where I floated on my back and just waved my arms and just barely kicked my feet, and I can float forever. But that feeling where it feels like it's taking you out is not a good feeling, let me just say.
Scary.
And not knowing where you're headed, right? So I lost my nerve a little bit. I did pray, and I went to that rock formation, and I got on that rock, and as soon as I got on it, there was a set coming, so a wave came. I got washed off the rock. I got 2 little nicks in my fingers just trying to hold on to that rock. Ooh, I got some real cuts on my knees, crabbing. Oof. I was like crabbing on it. So the wave came again, and I got knocked off the second time. I got up on the rock, and I thought it was my wife, and I said, "Hey." And that's about as loud as it got, because you're talking about, it was probably about 130 or 40 yards. It was a good distance.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey," and down I went again, right? And I was getting kind of beat up, right? And I was starting to think, I do not want to go down like this. This is not right. Please don't let me go down like this. I'm praying to my God. And I said, please, it's wrong. The kids are still too young, and Angie too. This isn't right. And I caught a glimpse of a guy in yellow shorts and the red dinghy. I've seen it in Laguna Beach, so many times, right?
Right.
With the red flotation thing. It's like a long, fat, like worm, but not that long.
Right.
And I saw him, and I said, all I have to do is hold on until that kid comes to get me, because I know he's coming for me. Nobody else was in the water. I know he's coming for me, right? And sure enough, and remember, that riptide takes you out fast. He got to me quick, right? And as soon as I saw him, there was another wave coming on the rock that I'd figured I could put my fingertips in the crannies, and I was holding on with one arm, and then I got broke again, but at least I didn't have to swim back as far.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw him, I jumped, and he was coming with the riptide, and I jumped almost right into him. And he threw that red dinghy around me, right?
Yeah.
And it's underneath me now. And he says to me, "What's your name?" And I said, "It's Charles." And he goes, "Okay, George, can you help me kick?" Because I don't know what Charles is hard in Spanish. I don't know why, but anyway,
Carlos.
I immediately started kicking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I had the presence of mind to kick. And then I started, after I caught my breath, because I really was spent,
Yeah.
after about 15 seconds is all it took. And I started kicking and using my arm. And then we got to a rock shelf and he stood up on it. And he says, okay, let's take a break, George. And I said, it's Carlos. He goes, oh, Carlos. Okay. His name was Hugo. Hugo. I was so happy for Hugo. And he says, okay, let's take a break. And when I stood up, I realized I was standing on swimmer fins. And I thought, swimmer fins. That's why he's able to save my butt.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because I felt like, because I could hear him breathing.
Yeah.
And he only took like 10 or 12 seconds. He goes, okay, let's go again. As soon as a wave hit, we jumped and we got to a second rock shelf and we stood up again. So I think Ugo knew where all those break points were. Yeah. And where to stop. And we took 2 breaks and we got in. And I got in the shore. Oh man. And Angie sees me and she says, you were white. And I go, was I? She goes, yeah, you were gone. And I go, I was gone. You have no idea how gone I was. And my knees were bleeding, my legs. And I said, and I thought to myself, I was able to make it successfully, but it was because I had help.
Yeah.
Now, somebody asked me, they said, oh, and you probably, when you saw him, you jumped on top of him and nearly drowned him. And I go, no, I didn't do that. No, I go, I knew that he was saving my butt. And the last thing I was going to do was panic. The first thing I was going to do was lay right back because I've seen lifeguards do this before in Laguna so many times. And I knew that red dinghy was coming on me. And I thought, once a red dinghy's on me, I'm home free.
You're good.
Right?
Yep.
And then when I realized Ugo's got swimmer fins, he can make it back. In fact, I told a friend of mine, Tom, who's a longtime surfer, who's been caught up multiple times, right? When you surf for years, and he's now in his 60s. Yeah, he's 65 now, and he's like, oh, man, I knew he could empathize with me because I feel bad for you. Yeah. Down at Salt Creek, I've been caught up in a riptide before, and that was bad. And anyway, he said, swim. What did he say? He said, swimmer fins save lives, right?
Yeah.
Swimmer fins save lives. But me working in tandem, not freaking out on Ugo, but working with him, working together, I was able to have success and get out of there. And I was so grateful to him. I've never been there before. Never. I was so grateful to work with him, though, and get out of there. Dude, I hooked him up the next day when I saw him. I went after him, and I had a punch in my hand for that guy. Yeah. And here's the thing, though, folks. I'm telling you the story, Mark, and everybody listening, is that you're going to need help. Right. At some point, you got to be modest enough, right, to recognize, look, I can't do this on my own. Yeah. I certainly probably won't be able to ever get my money over to a tax-free place unless I get help. But even creating a reliable income plan, you're going to need help. Yeah. And that's what we do. So I am so grateful to be alive. I really am.
Well,
I went out that I was thinking, Marcus, I went out that night. I did. I went out that night and went to dinner. My wife says, "Are you sure you want to go out?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." I go, "Because I'm still alive." Yeah. I'm so grateful. Now, some days later, I was wore out and I started crying. And I said, "You know what? I got not much, just a little bit. I got kind of emotional. I didn't really start crying." Yeah. And I said, I think I just, after a few days, I've got to deal with this now. But the good news is we ended up in Sayulita for the last 2 nights, about 10 miles north of the coast. Mm-hmm. And I went swimming. In the ocean again. I mean, everybody was frolicking in it then. It wasn't bad. Oh, that area, right where Sayulita, that little town is. Yeah. It's a nice break for surfers and no bad. It's not laid out. The surf doesn't hit it with a bad riptide. I don't think it's possible because it's almost like a bay, but not. Okay. Almost like a little harbor.
Like a little cove or something.
And I got right back in it and swam. The water wasn't near as clear as Punta Mita, but I sure was happy for that easy break.
Get back on that horse. So I'm going to switch things up because I was going to do a health tip on being in the ocean, but
no, do it. Because I got right back in, okay. Marcus. The ocean's your friend. It's not your enemy.
Yeah, no.
And listen, they should have had my wife pointed something out. She goes, with such a bad riptide, why didn't they put a flag up? Because in Laguna, they will just pull you right out. And Dana Point sometimes too. They'll be like, no, not today, right? Yeah, not until we establish that riptide's out of there. Yeah.
Right. It's not.
So tell us.
Well, it's not that I don't want to talk about the benefits of being in the ocean because I do. I think that's part of it. But I want to highlight something you shared this with me years ago, and I think it's a great health tip. and it relates
Go
to
ahead.
what you just recounted. So you told me many years ago that when you took dive training, right, when you were learning to scuba, and
Yeah.
your scuba instructor, he said there's three rules I want you to remember. He's rule number one is don't freak out. Rule number two is don't freak out, and rule number three is don't freak out. And I've carried that with me, and I use that, and I've shared it with other people because I think it's great advice, and I think that's a great health tip to put in at this point because you didn't freak out. You were in a really crazy situation, life and death, but you didn't freak out. You were
But I
able to,
still lost my edge, and
yeah.
I'm disappointed with myself for doing that.
Well, I
I
mean,
still
it
lost my
happens to
edge.
the best of us. We all
Yeah, and
overestimate
I
ourselves.
look back, and if I ever get caught up in that again, I'm going to my back and just floating.
Yep.
And eventually somebody will notice this dude's not around.
Yeah. 3 weeks later, where he should be back by now.
I mean, when the Apostle Paul said he spent a night and a day in the deep,
Yeah.
can you imagine that? That would be bad.
Uh, that's
That would not be fun, right?
that's crazy.
Yeah, but at least they had floaties. I'm sure they had pieces of the ship to hold on to, right?
Probably.
But yeah,
Probably.
that's no fun. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Mark for yeah. Don't lose it.
Don't
Don't
freak out.
panic. I remember him slapping the water in the training pool we're in. He goes, "Don't panic. Never,
Yeah.
ever panic." And I was telling myself that cool out,
Yeah.
stay calm. Whew, but then I was losing my breath.
That
Man,
that happened to me swimming out with you one time that I just got a little overwhelmed and I look back at the shore and it's about a good 70, 80 yards away and I'm already tuckered out, but I did what you said. I remember number one, don't freak out. It's okay. And number two, I just got on my back and I just, did the backstroke, rested, floated, backstroke, eventually made my way back in a little time, but yeah, it's that's a great thing to always remember. No matter what, we're talking investment strategies, health strategies. Don't freak out.
Don't freak out. That's right. Don't freak out. You're right. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
Good reminder. Excellent.
So, all right, man.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up there. As always, we appreciate it, folks. We remind you, link below. Click on that link. You can set up an appointment. Charles mentioned the number a little bit earlier. You get that 15-minute consultation. Also, you get these videos if you subscribe to the videos, which we'd also like you to do. That way you get the things as they're happening, right? We have a lot going on in the world, and then sometimes it happens fast. We try to keep up with these videos. You'll get them first because you're subscribed. So, as always, thanks for being with us. CD Financial Podcast, CD Financial, where health meets wealth. I'm Marcus, that's Chuck. We appreciate you being with us.
CD Financial, where health meets wealth.